So, what happens if you were to ask ChatGPT some of the burning questions about Star Citizen? I'm not really sure either, so let's find out. Now, the first thing we have to do is tell ChatGPT if there's information you want to look at it that you don't expect it to know automatically, you can kind of tell it where to look. So what it's basically saying is that it looks at the website in terms of specific queries that you ask it, but it doesn't just absorb all the information and have it as a repository of knowledge. So we've got to ask it some pretty specific questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it first about Star Citizen, just to figure out how accurate it is. Then we'll work up to some questions testing it and seeing if we can get, I don't know, maybe a release date from it. And then we'll look at a really interesting question that I asked it right at the end, asking it to choose which ship it would fly. What is Star Citizen?
Star Citizen is an upcoming massively multiplayer online game developed by Cloud Imperium Games. It was initially announced in 2011 as a crowd-funded project, and since then it has been in development with regular updates and improvements. The game is set in a fictional universe where players can explore space, trade goods, engage in combat, and perform a variety of other activities. The game features both first-person and third-person gameplay, and it allows players to customize their own characters and spaceships. One of the unique aspects of Star Citizen is its persistent universe, which means that the game world will continue to exist even when players log off. This creates a living and dynamic universe where players can engage with each other and affect the game world. Star Citizen has been in development for a long time, and its development has been somewhat controversial due to delays and changes in the project's scope. However, it remains one of the most highly anticipated games in recent years, with a dedicated fanbase eagerly waiting for its eventual release.
I mean, you can't say better than that, can you? I mean, that's pretty much what it is. It doesn't mention Squadron 42 though, so I'd really like to ask it, so what is Squadron 42?
Squadron 42 is a single-player campaign that is being developed alongside Star Citizen by Cloud Imperium Games. It is set in the same fictional universe as Star Citizen, but it focuses on a separate storyline that centers around a military unit known as Squadron 42. The game follows the player character, a newly recruited pilot in the United Empire of Earth Navy, as they progress through the ranks and take part in a series of missions that range from combat operations to reconnaissance and exploration. The game features an all-star cast of actors, including Mark Hamill, Gary Oldman, and Gillian Anderson, who provide voice acting and motion capture performances for the game's characters. Squadron 42 is being developed as a standalone game, but it will share many of the same assets and mechanics as Star Citizen. It is intended to provide players with a deep and immersive single-player experience that explores the lore and backstory of the game's universe. The game has been in development for several years and has experienced delays, but it remains highly anticipated by fans of Star Citizen and single-player gaming alike.
Pass around to you, ChatGPT. You can read, you know what Star Citizen is, you know what Squadron 42 is. It's time to start ramping up the questions, and then asking the one that everyone knows coming. What are the problems and criticisms of Star Citizen's development?
The development of Star Citizen has been subject to a number of criticisms and controversies. Some of the main issues and criticisms include development delays. The game has been in development for a long time, and there have been numerous delays and missed release dates. Some backers and fans have become frustrated with the slow progress of the game's development and the lack of transparency from the development team. Funding controversies. Star Citizen has raised more than $350 million through crowdfunding, which has led to some controversy and criticism. Some critics have accused the development team of mismanaging funds or using backer money to fund other projects or initiatives. Feature creep. Star Citizen's development has been marked by feature creep, which refers to the tendency to keep adding new features and content to a project, even when it causes delays or increases development costs. Some critics argue that the development team has promised too much and that the game's scope has become too ambitious. Lack of accountability. The development team has faced criticism for a perceived lack of accountability and transparency. Some backers and fans have accused the team of not providing regular updates or explanations for delays or changes to the game's development roadmap. Technical issues. Some players who have participated in Star Citizen's alpha releases have reported technical issues and bugs, which has led to frustration and criticism. It's worth noting that there are also many supporters and fans of Star Citizen who believe that the game has the potential to be a groundbreaking and immersive gaming experience.
Chat GPT, they're pulling no punches, and let's face it, they had to go with delays first. If they hadn't, I think we would have lost our shit a little bit. But bang on, yep, development delays, time and time and time again. It's interestingly, it's mentioned 350 million, and that's because a lot of the information that ChatGPT pulls in stopped at the end of 2021, and that's roughly where funding was. The bit in there I don't really have any knowledge of, or I haven't heard anything about, is the idea of backer money funding other projects or initiatives. But everything else in there makes sense, and, you know, feature creep, we've talked about it time and time and time again. There's so much stuff that's snuck in that we have, heard nothing about. The Prism system is a really good example of that, when there are very obviously existing systems that need to be built in, like modularity, that have been touted since day one, and we don't really see any of it yet. The Galaxy being the first real sign that it was even still on their radar to do. It kind of seems to be lumping lack of accountability and communicating with the backers into one, which I don't really like that. I think you can be very accountable but not communicate well. You can communicate well and not be accountable, but it seems to try and lump all that in the same. But, you know, I think for them it's more a case of communication than accountability, or if it is accountability, it's that we don't see it. We have no evidence that these things are happening, and therefore we're like, well, how do we know it's even happening? It's a company, you know, I'm sure that they're doing these things in the background. And then technical issues. Don't need to say any more about that, do I? What does it mean when a game is in alpha, question mark? Let's see what it says. We might need to ask this question a couple different ways, depending on what it says back to us.
When a game is in alpha, it means that it is in the early stages of development, and many of its features and systems are still being tested and refined. During the alpha stage, the game is typically playable but may be missing key features or have significant bugs and issues that need to be addressed. Alpha releases are usually made available to a select group of testers, either through a closed testing program or through a limited public release. The purpose of alpha testing is to gather feedback from players and identify issues or areas for improvement before the game is released to a wider audience. In the case of Star Citizen, the game has been in alpha for several years, with regular updates and new features being added over time. Alpha releases of Star Citizen are available to backers who have pledged a certain amount of money to the game's development, and they provide an opportunity for players to test out the game's features and provide feedback to the development team.
So interesting. So I'm going to force the question now. It's really interesting that ChatGPT contextualizes what it's talking about. It knows what it's asking for. Okay. Does Star Citizen really fit the description of a game, in quotes, in alpha? Let's see what it says.
It's difficult to give a straightforward answer to this question, as the term alpha can mean different things in different contexts. However, it's fair to say that Star Citizen's alpha releases have been more extensive and feature-rich than many other games in alpha. Star Citizen has been in alpha for several years, and during this time, the development team has released regular updates and added a significant amount of new features and content to the game. The alpha versions of Star Citizen are playable and include many of the game's core systems, such as ship combat, trading, and exploration. However, it's also worth noting that Star Citizen's alpha releases have had their share of technical issues, bugs, and incomplete features. Some players have reported experiencing crashes, graphical glitches, and other problems while playing the alpha versions of the game.
Sounds about right, but what I want to do is just give it some context so it figures that out. So I'm going to ask what it thinks, given the fact that one of the fundamental systems, server meshing, isn't yet in the game. Let's see where that takes us.
If we consider server meshing a fundamental feature that is still missing in Star Citizen's alpha, then it would be fair to say that the game is still in a relatively early stage of development, and it does fit the description of a game in alpha. Server meshing is a critical technology that will enable Star Citizen to create a seamless and persistent online universe. Without server meshing, the game is limited in its ability to support large numbers of players in a single instance and can lead to lag and other technical issues. While Star Citizen's alpha releases are more advanced and feature-rich than some other games in alpha, the fact that the game is still missing such a critical feature indicates that there is still a long way to go before the game is complete. The development team has acknowledged this and has stated that server meshing is a top priority, but it remains to be seen when this feature will be implemented in the game.
Well, hell, seeing as we brought server meshing up, let's start pressing and see not only if ChatGPT thinks it's possible and coming, but whether or not they're going to achieve what they're aiming to do with it. Because why not?
Server meshing is a technology that allows multiple servers to seamlessly merge together to create a single unified game world in which thousands of players can interact with each other simultaneously. This technology is critical for massively multiplayer online games like Star Citizen because it enables the game to handle a large number of players in a single instance without causing significant lag or other technical issues. The reason why server meshing has been delayed in Star Citizen is due to the complexity of the technology and the challenges of implementing it in a game as ambitious as Star Citizen. Creating a seamless and persistent universe that can handle thousands of players in a single instance is a significant technical challenge that requires careful planning, testing, and optimization. In addition to technical challenges, the development team has also faced issues with scope creep and feature creep, as they have added more and more features to the game over time. This has made it more difficult to implement server meshing, as it requires all of the game's systems to work together seamlessly. It's difficult to say for certain whether Star Citizen's goals for server meshing are realistic and achievable, as it depends on a variety of factors, such as the state of server technology worldwide, the complexity of the game's design, and the development team's ability to execute on their plans. However, the development team has been working on server meshing for several years, and they have made significant progress towards implementing the technology in the game. They have also stated that they have been working closely with technology partners and industry experts to develop the best possible solution for the game's needs. That being said, server meshing is a complex and ambitious technology, and it's possible that the implementation may face technical challenges or require additional optimization and testing. The development team has emphasized that they are committed to taking the time to get it right, rather than rushing the implementation, and they have stated that they will continue to iterate and improve on the technology as they move forward.
There's a reason why I went into server meshing here, and it's because server meshing for me is the one big challenge that Star Citizen is going to face. It fuels everything. It is the nerve center of the game. If dynamic server meshing doesn't work or works poorly, they're going to have problems with tick rates. They're not going to get as many players onto servers. They're not going to be able to do as much of what they want to do. So for me, it's always been kind of my primary worry with the game forever. It sounds almost too good to be true as a technology, which is why I tried to push ChatGPT a little bit to see if it could draw on any of its other knowledge about server meshing, and it didn't. On that note, where it talks about them making gains, them making progress, it's doing so specifically from the sources on the CIG website. I asked it, so you can go and have a look at the full transcript. I'm going to try and upload it to my webpage, so if I manage to do that, I will put that in the description. You can go and read the whole thing and the little bits that I've cut out included. And now the bit you've all been waiting for. The question I was going to have to ask ChatGPT, or someone else would have done it for me. Given the progress of Star Citizen, when do we think Star Citizen and Squadron 42 will be released? I actually asked this question twice in two different ways to try and get a more precise answer out of the AI. Results in just a second. If you don't like them, don't worry, stick around, because I actually managed to get the AI to choose which two ships it would fly. Let's have a look. Can you project a completion date for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen? Question mark. Moment of truth. Da, 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 da. It's gonna say no, isn't it?
As an AI language model, I do not have the ability to project a completion date for Squadron 42 or Star Citizen with any degree of accuracy. The development of these games is a complex and dynamic process that involves many different factors, such as technical challenges, design decisions, and resource allocation, all of which can impact the timeline for completion. Additionally, the development team has not provided a specific release date for either game, and they have emphasized that their priority is on delivering a high-quality and polished experience for players, rather than rushing to meet a specific deadline. It's worth noting that game development is often subject to delays and unforeseen challenges, and it's not uncommon for release dates to shift or change as the development process progresses. Therefore, while the development team is making progress towards the completion of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, it's difficult to predict exactly when these games will be released, and players should approach any release date projections with caution.
So, one more last-ditch effort at this. Let's see if I can ask it to look at all the features on the website, figure out which ones have been added, which ones are still to add, and then using how many features it's adding per year from the roadmap, whether it can figure that out. Probably not. Not all the features are listed. Even if it does give us a figure, it's going to be nothing like reality, unsurprisingly. But let's give it a go just to see if I can coax it into an answer.
While it may be tempting to estimate a completion date for Star Citizen based on the rate of progress in the roadmap, it's important to keep in mind that game development is a complex and iterative process that can be difficult to predict. The development of Star Citizen involves many different factors beyond simply implementing individual features, such as testing, bug fixing, optimization, and integration with other game systems. Additionally, the development team may encounter unexpected technical or design challenges that could slow down progress or require additional resources. Furthermore, the roadmap is subject to change, and the development team has emphasized that it's a living document that will be updated as development progresses. Therefore, while the roadmap can provide some insight into the progress being made on the game, it's not a reliable predictor of a completion date.
So who knew that Chat GPT was going to be spitting facts at us at the end, even though it will not be drawn absolutely on a completion date. And it does say within the AI's programming that where it's asked to make a call that's completely out of its knowledge base, that it won't be drawn on doing so. So, you know, well done, true to your programming so far, I guess. It is spitting some really interesting points about not being able to take the pace of delivery up until now as an indicator, because pace of delivery changes. It talks about how the roadmap is not a reliable predictor of completion dates, because it's progress and it's sprints and it's not necessarily the end. So, you know, even Chat GPT, the AI, can't give us an answer. We wait eternally in hope. CIG. Gib? Please, Gib? Anyway, as promised, one of the last questions is also one of the most interesting. Just for fun, if an AI could pilot any of the ships in Star Citizen, which one do you think it would choose, and why?
As an AI language model, I don't have personal preferences or desires, but I can imagine that if an AI were to pilot a ship in Star Citizen, it would likely choose a ship that is highly automated and efficient, with advanced sensors and communication systems that would allow it to quickly process and respond to data from its surroundings. One possible candidate could be the Anvil Carrack, which is designed for long-range exploration and features advanced sensor arrays, communication systems, and automation technology. The Carrack also has a large cargo bay and living quarters, which could be useful for carrying out extended missions or providing a comfortable working environment for an AI crew. Another option could be the Aegis Reclaimer, which is a large salvage ship designed for salvaging and recycling derelict spacecraft. The Reclaimer has a highly automated arm system for retrieving salvage and processing materials, which could be well suited for an AI pilot.
Don't try and tell me these things aren't going to take over the world! Holy shit! Oh dear, I was not expecting that. But there you go, that was Chat GPT talking smack about Star Citizen, I guess. Thank you very much for joining. Leave a comment down below on what you'd like me to ask Chat GPT about next. Let's leave likes and do all that sort of good stuff if you've enjoyed it. You want to see the next stuff coming out. You've been watching Drinkers with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. See you soon. Shit, AI is terrifying.